On June 15th, 2021, 5-year-old Summer Wells was enjoying a beautiful day with her family. The little girl was helping her mother and grandmother plant flowers at their rural Rogersville, Tennessee home. But like most little kids, she eventually grew tired of this activity and wanted to go back into the house and play with her toys. So her mom, Candace, walked her back in the house where Summer's 3 older brothers were. Candace then went back outside for just a few minutes, but when she returned home, her daughter was gone. What follows is a baffling case filled with accusations, conspiracy theories, and arrests, but no sign of Summer. When a person goes missing, there's a special kind of pain in the not knowing. I want to tell you the stories of those who never came home. Today, I want to tell you the story of Summer Wells. I'm Kona Gallagher.
And I'm Ethan Flick.
And this is And Then They Were Gone. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back.
Thank you for joining us once again for another recent case. Yeah, the 1-year anniversary Summer's disappearance actually just passed about a month before we're recording this.
Oh, that's really recent. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And it's still just so unbelievable to me. You know, I mean, we've seen other cases in which children seemingly disappear in a matter of moments, but like the idea of it happening in such a rural area is almost literally unbelievable.
Yeah, and her brothers were in the house too. Like,
yeah, 3 of them.
I really want to get into this. This is like I don't understand.
Yeah,
where
like
she
there were
would
5
go.
family members right there.
Yeah.
Because again, like, and I'll get into all of this, of course, but like her mom and grandma were like right outside of the house.
Yeah, I mean, like how did they miss?
Right, exactly.
Her disappearing like that.
Yeah. So have you heard about this case at all?
No, not at all. Shocker.
Okay. Yeah, I know, shocker.
Yeah.
But I thought because like it was recent and it's been in the news a lot that maybe you had come across it.
No, I try not to pay attention to the news.
All right. Yeah. So this is also kind of a special episode because for the first time, I'm not the one who researched it.
Oh?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't research it. So.
That's for damn sure. No, I actually got an assist from Kat Morris of Active Shooter, the podcast.
Oh.
Yeah. So I got to know her through the Darkcast Network, of which we are a part, a great collection of indie podcasts.
Shout out to them.
Shout out. And yeah, she is a researcher and like, that's like what she does. And so because I'm incredibly overwhelmed all the time, I thought, okay, like why not have somebody help a little bit? And so she did. And it was actually incredibly helpful.
Wow, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kat. Yeah, I mean, and part of the reason why I chose this case for her to help us out with was because I actually attempted to do this several months ago. But I started looking into it, and because it's so current, there are a million different internet rabbit holes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I just started looking into it and my brain just melted. Like I could not get through it all, And so I figured Kat would be able to like really kind of focus in on the actual information and not get distracted like I do. And she did. So it was great. And so, yeah, so I hope you like this episode and definitely check out Active Shooter, the podcast that she researches. It is, obviously a relevant topic. But for now, let's get into the story of Summer Wells. Summer Moon Utah Wells was born on February 4th, 2016 to Candace Bly and Don Wells. Summer is the youngest of 4 children. She has 3 older brothers, like I mentioned in the intro, but in order to protect their privacy, because they're all fairly young, their names and ages haven't been publicized. I get the feeling that they're not too much older, though. Like, if I had to guess, I would say that the oldest is probably like 10 or 11 when all this is happening.
Okay, so not like adults.
No, not at all.
In the house.
Not at all. Like, they were like little-ish kids.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The family lives in a small house on a lot of land in Rogersville, Tennessee. Now, the home itself, just from photos and things that I've seen, it looks like a rambler with a basement. And for those of you who may not be familiar with that term, a rambler is a one-level rectangular shaped home.
Also known as a ranch house.
Also known as a ranch home. Yeah, exactly. Depending on like your geographical location in the U.S. Now, this home is about 760-ish square feet, so not large, but that doesn't include the basement. Now, from the photos that I've seen, it appears that there's also an ad hoc addition on the home and like a covered porch, and it really, and I say ad hoc because, I mean, this seems 100% DIY, like, and a building inspector has not gotten within miles of this home. Like, and we'll get into that a little bit more once we kind of get into the home, you know, legitimately. But yeah, so, and it is important because like the state of the home and the layout and everything does play a factor in this case. Now, the home itself sits on over 11 acres. So I told you, like, there's a lot of space.
Yeah, that's a lot of land.
Yeah. And according to property records, there's also a utility building on the property. So like a shed. I mean, a shed. It's not, I think it said it was 400 square feet. So nothing crazy. There's a large circular driveway that surrounds the house, and several acres around the house have been cleared. But the majority of this 11.5 acres is densely wooded. There are a few other homes that are pretty close as the crow flies, but they're all on the other side of like that forest, basically.
How far off of a main road is it?
There are two roads fairly close, again, but, you know, several acres like away, you know, because of the size of the property. Okay, so I'm actually going to show you the Google map of this whole thing because you really do need to get like a visual sense of what we're dealing with here. This is the address, that's the property, and you can see that there are several roads surrounding it, but again, a ton of trees.
Gotcha. Yeah,
so
the house looks like it's set pretty far back from any road.
It is. The house is in the middle of that 11.5 acres. So I'm just showing you the map view now. Let me show you the actual satellite view.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty long driveway. It looks like, and it goes through the woods. In my mind, the way you described it, I was thinking that it was like cleared land, and then the forest or the woods were behind the house, but the house is surrounded.
Like I said,
woods.
They plopped the house like straight
right
in the middle.
Wow.
And so the other, like the neighbors' houses are like over here on the other side of Beach Creek Road.
Yeah.
So like I said, as the crow flies, not far, but far enough and not easy to actually get to.
Yeah, for sure.
In addition to the family of 6, Summer's grandmother, Candace Harrer, lives in a trailer on the property right across from the house. And I did show you a photo of the property as well, and you could see that camper that's right there. So that is where the grandmother lives. On June 15th, 2021, 5-year-old Summer was out with her mother and grandmother, both named Candace, by the way.
Yeah, that's not confusing.
Yeah. The trio was planting flowers in pots and repotting some cacti that they had. Summer's father, Don, was at work, and the 3 boys were inside of the house watching YouTube and playing video games.
Pretty standard.
Exactly. Don works in construction, hanging drywall. So I don't know exactly where he was working, that day, but because obviously his work locations change.
Yeah, it's whatever the site is.
Yeah. So, but I mean, he was on a site. Shortly before 6:30 p.m., Summer told her mom that she wanted to go back into the house and play with her toys. So Candace took Summer inside. Her brothers, of course, were watching everything super loud. But they were all hanging out on the main level at the house. They were actually all sitting at a table together. So there was a TV, and then some of them had like handheld games or, some sort of handheld devices. So they're kind of doing a mixture of things. Summer's room, though, is in the basement. And so that's where like her toys were. So Summer headed down to her room, and Candace told the boys, quote, "Watch Sissy, I'll be right back," end quote. Then Candace went back outside. Now, according to her, she went back outside to help her mother put on a knee brace, and she was gone for no more than 2 to 3 minutes. When she came back in, she, was going to go check on Summer, and the boys apparently had not moved, as you would imagine.
Shocker.
And they probably hadn't moved for several hours leading up to this. So she called Summer's name, didn't get a response. So she went down to the basement to see, what Summer was up to. And the boys, like I said, had the volume turned up on everything. So like they didn't hear anything before their mom came back in the house.
Did Candace actually see Summer go downstairs?
Yes.
Okay. So she physically actually saw her go down into the basement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. She didn't go down into the basement with her.
Right.
But yes, she saw her go down there.
And is this a walkout basement? Is there? It
is a walkout basement. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. For Summer to leave by whatever method, she could have done it without anybody seeing. After, Summer wasn't responding to Candace calling her name, Candace goes down to the basement, looks around, no Summer. At this point, she's starting to panic. You've got to assume she obviously opens the basement door, looks around, doesn't see her, things like that. The kids, like I mentioned, didn't hear anything. And of course, they didn't see her come back upstairs or leave or anything like that. So Candace, when she can't find Summer, just looking around, she starts to panic. So she calls Don and she tells him what's going on. And he's like, "Listen, hang up with me, call the police."
Yeah, no, that's smart.
Yeah. But so Candace did that, or at least tried to, but cell service up where they live is terrible. And so she actually couldn't get through to 911 on her phone. So she went to the camper to see her mom and borrow her phone because her mom was on a different carrier. And so she was able to call 911 from her mother's phone. So Don also immediately left work and rushed home. By the time he arrived, Candace had also alerted the neighbors. And so they had come out and had joined the family in starting to search around the property. And Hawkins County Police soon arrived and joined in the search as well.
Did Candace notice, was the basement door open?
So I believe it was closed.
Okay.
Yeah. So police get there, and of course, they join in the search, but, they also talk to Don and Candace, especially Candace and the grandma, I'm sure, as well. And they told police that it wasn't like Summer to just wander off, because some kids do, right? Like some kids do just kind of go off and
yeah, I mean, I would especially assume so, given that they have 11 acres and it's wooded.
Yeah.
Kids like to be outdoors. Some do.
Yeah.
And so growing up on a property like that, I would imagine that they would be kind of wanderers.
Right, exactly. But, it doesn't seem like she would have been. And because think about it, we have a child who's just a little bit younger than Summer. And if we were at our house, basically in the front yard, which is where they were, planting the flowers and everything. And if our youngest said, "Hey, I want to go back inside and play with my toys," I would have just been like, "All right, go." I'll be in soon.
Right.
Let me finish up here. But she physically walked Summer in there and told her brothers to keep an eye on her, which I wouldn't have even done that.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Right.
So, so the fact that she did that makes me think that Summer wasn't the type of kid who they'd just be like, "Oh yeah, go out and play in the woods,"
Right.
It seems unlikely that she would have just decided to leave the basement, go out and chase a butterfly or whatever and get lost. Especially, if the timeline was really as tight as Candace claimed, if we're really only talking 2 to 3 minutes, because kids are sneaky, but, a 5-year-old can only get so far in that short of a period of time on their own.
Yeah.
We talk about this in all of these missing child cases, but 99% of every single child who goes missing, they're found almost immediately,
Mm-hmm.
But Summer wasn't. After the initial police response didn't yield results, meaning, when they came and searched and didn't find her within a couple of hours, police started to think, okay, well, maybe there is something else going on. So they called in additional agencies. Tennessee Highway Patrol's aviation unit and Ballad Health's Heart Air Service used helicopters to search, and the Churchill Rescue Squad, Hawkins County Rescue, EMA, EMS, and Sheriff's Office all responded. The Goshen Valley Volunteer Fire Department and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation responded as well.
That's a hefty response.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, they were not messing around. This is another case where I'm not going to, really...
Yeah, no, that's exactly... You rally up the troops, so to speak.
Exactly.
Get everybody out.
Yeah, and when I was looking at the Google map, the volunteer fire department is actually right down the road from their house. So they're very close by. So I'm sure everybody got there pretty quickly. In all, there were about 60 to 80 people out searching for Summer that first night.
Wow.
Yeah, both, authorities and volunteers. And the response was clearly swift on this one. And, the one good thing that searchers had going for them, in addition to the numbers, was the fact that it was a pleasant summer evening. So temperatures were in the high 70s. We're talking Fahrenheit. I'm sorry I didn't look up the Celsius equivalents because we're dumb Americans. But it was in the high 70s around the time she went missing and only got down to the low 60s overnight. So weather-wise, at least, it wasn't an unsafe environment for a child to be out in. So that was the one positive thing that they had going for them. As June 15th turned into the 16th, the search party still hadn't uncovered any sign of the missing 5-year-old. So at 12:07 a.m. on June 16th, the TBI issued an endangered child alert. Now, this alert is basically one step down from an Amber Alert. It's issued when there's a serious concern for the child's safety, but there isn't necessarily proof that the child was kidnapped or is otherwise in extreme immediate danger. According to the TBI, quote, in issuing an endangered child alert, the TBI notifies local media in specific regions of the state about the missing child, along with any additional available information. The TBI also uses social media to further share the relevant information, end quote. Because again, at this point, the most likely scenario is that she did just wander off and was nearby.
Yeah.
So not good because she's 5, but not necessarily a dire life-threatening emergency at this point.
Right. There's no evidence of, somebody being in a car, screeching away. Nobody heard anything. Nobody saw anything. So.
Exactly. But as dawn broke on the morning of Wednesday, June 16th, the TBI started to grow more concerned, because by the time it's sunrise, it had been about 12 hours since the little girl apparently walked out of her basement and nothing had been found. So by 11 a.m., they did issue an Amber Alert. The Amber Alert basically ensured that Summer's information reached a wider audience. Again, according to the TBI, quote, in Amber Alerts, the TBI harnesses the strengths of partner agencies, including TEMA, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, the National Weather Service, TDOT, and others, and that's the Tennessee Department of Transportation, to amplify the message of vital information about the missing child and, if available, the suspect vehicle and direction of travel, end quote. Now, of course, we didn't have any of that information, but like I said, this was basically to get Summer's photo and vitals and circumstances of her disappearance out to everybody in the state. At 4 p.m. that day, Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Long held a press conference. In it, he provided updates about the growing search for Summer. He said that over 100 people from 19 agencies were assisting and that the FBI was now involved. He also directly appealed to nearby residents and asked them all to check their doorbell cameras, trail cameras, or any other security cameras that they had to see if they had captured anything of importance. Unfortunately, as you could see from the Google map, Summer's home wasn't near any businesses or major roads that would have had their own security cameras. So residential cameras were really the only thing that investigators potentially had to work with. They also asked residents to check around their own properties, especially in sheds or any other places that a 5-year-old could potentially hide. So the search was going strong, though it was hampered by the terrible cell phone service that I mentioned. Searchers couldn't really communicate with each other when they were out, and so that really did slow things down. Nevertheless, within 24 hours of Summer's disappearance, the TBI had received 30 tips. And this was starting to turn into a huge local story. The next day, Thursday, June 17th, Sheriff Long was joined by TBI spokesperson Leslie Earhart for another press conference. By this time, people had some questions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I'm sure they want to know, was there any sign of forced entry on the basement door?
Mm-hmm.
Have they found anything at all?
Yeah, I mean, because by this time it had been about 36 hours since Summer's disappearance, and searchers had turned up exactly nothing. So this really was starting to look less like the 99% of cases and more like the horrifying 1%. In this press conference, Sheriff Long said that, quote, everyone is a person of interest, and, quote, nothing is off the table. Earhart reported that they had covered a 1-mile radius around Summer's house and hoped to have 2 miles done by the end of the day. She also said that they had received around 50 tips by this point. Now, we've said many times that you never know how you're going to react in a situation like this until you're in it. And being a parent of a missing child is obviously one of the most horrible things in the world for a lot of reasons. But one of which is that it's so incredibly difficult. And we see this in like every single missing child case that we've covered. It's so difficult to act in a way that's received positively by the public. You really have to walk this fine line of being involved, but not overly so. You have to be kind, but firm. You have to be upset, but not hysterical. Like, it's basically like being a woman in society in general, but on a much more awful scale. And in this case, Summer's parents and their behavior have been heavily scrutinized. On the evening of the 17th, about 48 hours after his daughter was last seen, Don Wells released his first statement. And what we're going to see throughout this case is Don and Candace talking a lot. And again, it's so hard because you have parents who are said, oh, like they never talk to media, they just stay hidden and are criticized for that.
Right.
And what you see here is the opposite. They're criticized for being too out there. So this first statement was similar to the information given earlier that day in the press conference, but Don said that 41 agencies had aided in the search and that over 85 tips had been received. And like maybe this was true because this was, several hours after that press conference. I don't know. But he also reiterated the family's belief that Summer never would have wandered off and that he believed someone must have snuck up on her and grabbed her.
That's his belief.
Yeah.
I don't see there necessarily being anything wrong with him saying that. It's his statement.
Well, yeah, exactly. And again, he's the one who knows Summer and knows that she doesn't wander off into the woods.
Right. This isn't an official statement from an investigating agency.
Correct.
This is a missing daughter's father.
Mm-hmm.
And, criticize all you want. He's got an alibi.
Yeah.
Like he was clearly not at the house.
Mm-hmm.
So, just take that out of the equation.
But by Friday, authorities weren't the only ones who were thinking, that this was turning into more than a girl who had just wandered off. Social media was on fire with people speculating and saying not the kindest things about Summer's family. That Friday night, there was actually a prayer vigil for Summer, and Candace said that she wasn't even going to go originally because of the things that people had been saying about her online. But she ultimately decided, she's like, look, this is about Summer, so I'm going to suck it up and go. And, I want to attend this thing for my daughter. That afternoon, though, before the vigil, a third press conference was held. In this conference, they talked about how they were really stepping up the search. In addition to everything that we've already talked about, authorities also deployed a dive team, hazardous terrain search team, urban search and rescue team, and a tactical radio system. Now, the tactical radio system is good. I mean, I'm assuming that was to mitigate the poor cell service.
Yeah, and probably offer interoperability within agencies.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have so many agencies working together.
Yeah. And you wouldn't want them all necessarily contacting each other on their cell phones regardless.
Right. And their radios probably don't cross paths. Like,
Yeah.
the EMTs may not be able to communicate with the state troopers.
Yeah.
So on and so forth. So if there's some base of communication that they can all go through, like it keeps everybody in touch.
Yeah. And again, with so many agencies and more agencies coming on every day, like that definitely would have been key. Now, I do find the dive team interesting because, again, just based on the Google map, it doesn't really look like there are any bodies of water near Summer's home.
There were.
Were there?
There were creeks around it.
But I didn't see I saw something, it was called Beach Creek because they are on Beach Creek Road, but I didn't see like any physical creeks.
Don't do the Google image one because that's
yeah.
covered up by trees, but do the street view and you can see the blue lines are the creeks. I don't know how deep it is. I don't know.
Right, exactly.
How fast the water flows, but there is definitely water around their house.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that was searched. Earhart, the TBI spokesperson, also said that they had covered 1,000 acres by this point and that they hadn't obtained any search warrants because both Summers' family and the surrounding property owners had all consented to searches. The search for Summer continued through the weekend with agency members from Ohio, Tennessee, Virginia, Alabama, North Carolina, and Georgia all joining in the search. By the end of Sunday, over 2,400 acres had been looked at. Sheriff Lawson held a fourth press conference on Monday afternoon in which he continued to encourage property owners to check sheds and other potential hiding places on their properties. The TBI also had over 150 tips, but still no solid leads in Summer's disappearance. By the 1 week mark of the search, 3,000 acres had been covered and people from over 80 agencies were involved. By the next day, 4.6 square miles had been searched, and Don Wells reported that Candace had passed a polygraph test. While the ground search continued, so did the investigation. On Saturday, June 26th, the TBI announced that there was a person of interest with whom they wanted to speak, but they didn't say who that was.
I mean, who could it be?
I have no idea. Now, interestingly, they were also looking for a pickup truck that was seen near Summer's home on the day she disappeared. This truck was a Toyota pickup made between 1998 and 2000 with a full bed ladder rack with white buckets in the bed. Now, they did say that this person, the driver, wasn't a suspect, but that they wanted to talk to them to see if they had heard or saw anything that day. So it sounds like this isn't the person of interest, but like you said, who else could it be? Because they've talked to the family, they've talked to the neighbors. So like, who else would there be?
Yeah, and that had to have come in from a tip or from, one of the neighbors seeing that truck there.
Yeah, exactly. So, or the cameras, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be the person of interest.
I mean, you would think, but it would be weird that they announced the person of interest and then this truck and they're like, but that's this person isn't a suspect. I don't know. I just don't know. On June 27th, just under 2 weeks since Summer apparently walked out of her basement, the difficult decision was made to scale back the search. The terrain around her home was treacherous, and searchers were both physically and mentally exhausted. Over 13,800 man-hours had been spent searching, and they covered over 3,000 acres.
Wow.
Yeah. The TBI fixed wing spent 21.2 hours in the air, while the THP helicopter flew for 30 hours. So, I mean, you cannot say that they did not extensively search for this little girl.
Yeah, that's an exhaustive search.
It really is. And you can't keep that up forever.
No.
Unfortunately. I mean, obviously in a perfect world you would, but it's just not physically possible. While the ground search had to be scaled back, the actual investigation kept going. Now, by this time, Summer's story was huge in the local area, but had also gotten some national attention. I run our Twitter account and I follow a bunch of missing persons related accounts, as you can imagine. And Summer was a constant topic of conversation and speculation. I mean, basically since the very beginning. I mean, this wasn't something where we only heard about it 6 months later. Like, this got into the, the missing persons social media realm very quickly. And as the weeks went on, more and more of that speculation was aimed at Summer's family. By the 1 month mark, the TBI was still saying that it was possible that Summer had wandered off and gotten lost in the woods.
Of course, it's a possibility, but that's really unlikely given the massive amount of area that they searched.
Exactly. And the speed in which they responded.
Right. And especially because they found nothing.
Yeah.
It'd be different if they found like an article of clothing or something.
Something.
But nothing. And you said 3,000 acres?
Yeah.
Like, it's... Again, it's not outside of the realm of possibility. But
Nothing
it's highly
is,
unlikely.
But yeah. Summer's parents, on the other hand, they were adamant that she had been abducted because that explanation didn't make sense to them, that she had just wandered off. And Don did say publicly that he thought there was a good chance that Summer was already dead, which obviously he caught a lot of criticism for. All of the neighbors and local registered sex offenders were questioned, and all digital evidence, including cell phone data and cell tower data, had also been collected by this point. Canines had also been brought in, and they followed Summer's scent down their road, down the road leading to the house, but then it was lost. And so that could possibly indicate that she was put in a car and driven away. Almost from the beginning, fingers started pointing at Summer's family, which of course is normal in a case like this. But there were certain things about her family life that were concerning. It makes sense, potentially, that people were pointing fingers at the parents, other than the fact that the parents obviously always are the first people that are looked at. So number one is the home itself. It was filthy and cluttered. Candace actually let cameras into the home, it's on YouTube, did a whole, tour of the house. And it looks like it's a hoarder situation almost. It also didn't look like the children had proper bedrooms. Okay.
It's still none of which indicates that they would harm their children.
No, for sure. Absolutely. But, Summer's room, for instance, did have toys and a TV, but the basement where her room was unfinished. It had cinder block walls, no ceiling, just the beams, and wires running everywhere.
Okay, again, not safe.
Right.
Not the nicest room to be in, but not indicative of, abuse or neglect or whatever.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
It's a bad living situation,
yeah,
sure. But
her bed was a mattress on the floor, shoved into a corner. It wasn't great, but you're absolutely right. She did still have toys. She had games, she did have those things that you would want to see. And we've covered other stories, the Oakley Carlson one, for instance, where, when the home was searched, they didn't find anything of hers,
right.
But in addition to living conditions, Don did have a history of violence. He has an extensive arrest record in several states, including Utah, Arkansas, and Tennessee. In August of 2001, an affidavit was filed stating that officers had gone to the Ben Hill Road home in an attempt to locate Don to charge him as a fugitive from justice due to a parole violation out of Utah. He was found hiding in a storage room and taken into custody. This parole violation was related to one or more of several convictions that Don had in Utah between 1990 and 2001, including attempted aggravated assault, interfering with a public servant, forgery, burglary of a dwelling, and theft. Then, between 2006 and 2007 in Arkansas, Don was charged with possession of counterfeit substances without a prescription, as well as burglary. After that, Don returned to Tennessee, and he and Candace had their children and settled into that home on Ben Hill Road. Now, I did look up the property taxes for this home, but the Hawkins County property tax records are not great. So I wasn't able to get a clear idea of ownership. Don is listed as the current owner. It's only his name, interestingly, not Candace's. I get the impression that the property is from his family because the last sales record was from 2015 and there's a $0 amount next to it. So I'm thinking that this land, given the fact that he was found there in 2001, right. 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that this property was always in the family and that it just became his home in 2015. In addition, there have been rumors brought by one of Don's, I believe it's his half sister, not his full sister, but in any case, she has publicly accused Don of sexually assaulting her many years ago. So there is that. On October 14th, 2020, so about 8 months prior to Summer's disappearance, police were called to the home and Don was arrested on domestic violence charges. He was also charged with possession of a handgun while under the influence and unlawful possession of a weapon. I'm actually surprised they didn't also nail him for DUI because once he realized police were on their way, he got into his car and attempted to drive off. But police intercepted him before he left the property. So maybe that's why, because he was on his private property. I don't know. I don't know what the laws are in Tennessee. But in any case, he was drunk and trying to escape. Police stopped him and then interviewed both Don and Candace. So they asked Candace Bly what had happened, and she stated that Don had come home that night drunk. When he got home, there was somebody else in the house, an adult male. This person has not been named. And he immediately thought that Candace was cheating on him. So Don started arguing with the person and began struggling with Candace. He pushed Candace down and injured her knee. Now, witnesses also said that Don punched himself in the face multiple times before driving off in his truck.
Okay. Why?
I don't know. It says various family members. So I'm assuming that the kids had to have been there at this time. Candace's mother, Grandma Candace, was probably around too. Because various family members also claimed that they were afraid of Don and said that he had a gun in his truck. Don did admit to drinking that night and told police that he was a felon due to his conviction in Utah. He also said that he had a black powder pistol in his glove compartment, and I don't know what that means.
I mean, it's a black powder gun.
I don't know what that means. What is a black powder gun? Like a musket?
Yeah, essentially.
Really?
Yeah.
So like an antique gun?
Probably a replica, but yeah.
Oh, that's weird. Okay.
It would be a weird thing to own, but yes, you say a black powder pistol, I think basically a muzzle loader.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know why somebody would have that
in their glove compartment.
Yeah. But it is a firearm.
Yeah. All right. The next day, on October 15th, 2020, Candace Bly filed for a personal protection order, writing, quote, "I am afraid for my children and myself. My mother fears he is going to hurt her because she is staying in her camper on the property," end quote. The PPO was granted, but 4 days later, during a hearing, Candace said that she had changed her mind and asked for the charges to be dismissed. You can ask for the charges to be dismissed all you want, but some of them are outside of her control. So on April 21st, 2021, which is about 2 months prior to Summer's disappearance, Don pled guilty to possession of a handgun while under the influence. He was required to forfeit this black powder gun to the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office. However, both the domestic violence and the unlawful possession of a handgun charges were dismissed, and Don said that he and Candace had, quote, worked it out.
So this is all well and good, but it's obviously not painting Don in a very good light.
Mm-hmm.
However, Don was not there the day Summer disappeared.
Right. Yeah.
So...
yeah, if we're going off of the publicly available timeline, you're absolutely right. Like, there is no physical way that he could have done anything to her.
Right. I'm assuming there's conspiracy theories saying that they staged this or
Oh yeah, of course. And we'll talk. Listen, we're not going to get really into it because it would just be a whole 10-part series. And we're not even doing a part 2. It's just this. In the months after Summer's disappearance, both Dawn and Candace gave numerous interviews and hosted their own YouTube lives, which were pretty unhinged from all accounts. They often appeared to both be under the influence, and, they didn't really do much to dispel the rumors that one or both of them were somehow involved in this disappearance.
Well, okay. Not that I would ever do a YouTube live event or whatever, but they just lost their daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, and clearly there's a history of substance abuse, at least on Dawn's part. I'm sorry, I don't blame them for being drunk.
Right. Yeah.
It's a horrible thing that they're going through. Should they have put it online? No, but
yeah, I mean,
I can't really blame them for dealing with this the way that they are.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly not the healthiest way to deal with it, but it's understandable. And
right.
And Don has been very open about how he spiraled. He admits that, everything that has happened, after Summer's disappearance has not been good. And he's done a lot of dumb things, basically. And we'll, get into all of that. And, I will say that they do have one champion, which is Dr. Phil. In October of 2021, the couple appeared on the Dr. Phil show. You can see the clips on our blog. At the end of it, though, Dr. Phil told Dawn and Candace on air that based on the timing of the disappearance, the rural location of the home, and the fact that Dawn was at work, that he did not believe that they had anything to do with Summer's disappearance. And let's listen to him say that.
And given the timeline, there's no way that either one of y'all did harm to your daughter and I hate to even say these words, killed your daughter and hid her body in the woods somewhere. I just don't believe that's even possible. So understand, I'm not sitting here wondering if you killed your daughter. Awesome. I'm not sitting here wondering if you killed your daughter.
Thank you.
I don't think that for a second. And I'm saying that publicly here. So if people are wondering what I think, that's what I think. I don't think you did that. I don't think you did that. And I assume I'm correct about that.
Yes.
You didn't do anything to hurt your daughter?
No, sir.
You didn't do anything to hurt your daughter?
Okay, so I do agree with Dr. Phil in that, like we just said, I mean, if this whole timeline is correct, they didn't have time to kill her and hide her body in the woods or whatever.
Right. Plus, that whole area was searched. I mean, really thoroughly. You're talking about 80 different agencies, 80 plus,
right?
Maybe more. If the ground had been disturbed in any way, they would have found it.
Yeah, and I get that it's the woods, but
Come
still,
on.
I mean, with the equipment that they were using,
right.
with the canines,
right? Yeah, I don't buy that. That at all.
No. But of course, some internet sleuths are questioning whether this story is true at all. There are rumors that Candace abused drugs, and so people are saying that she sold Summer in order to satisfy a drug debt or something of that nature.
Seems unlikely, but okay.
Yeah. Another theory is that Summer died by accident sometime prior to this, and so this is all an elaborate cover-up.
But given the age of the brothers, or what we think are the ages of the brothers,
we know they're older, right? So we know that they're older than 5.
Right. I feel like that probably would have come to light.
Well,
via
exactly.
One of them.
Yeah, and and obviously we have no idea what they've said to police or what they haven't said to police, but it can't be anything that intense because nothing's happened.
Right.
They
never even named either of the parents as persons of interest.
Exactly. Yeah. So, which is, again, looking at the Oakley Carlson case that we just covered, that was blown wide open by Oakley's siblings who were in the home.
Right.
And that is not the case here. And so, but some people are saying that maybe Summer died accidentally and only Candace knew about it. So she was able to hide it from the rest of the family. So maybe the kids truly don't know anything about what happened, or, neither does Dawn. But again,
then where's the body?
Exactly. And they would have had to have known something happened because, the kids were there. Right. And so if the story is they saw Summer moments before her disappearance, they would have to be helping to cover it up as well. Which
is unlikely.
Yeah, given their age. Right. You can believe that the grandma's helping cover it up to protect her daughter or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, the kids, after all this time, it is harder to believe. Now, that is also, one of the other theories is that one or more of the boys did something to Summer. And that this is all Candace and Grandma Candace are helping to cover that up. And that's why the boys aren't saying anything, because they're keeping their own secret as opposed to their parents' secret.
Yeah. But again, it's where is the body then?
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And so it could have happened earlier in the day. So she could have been taken, further off of the property.
Sure, but 3,000 acres were
searched. Yeah, I know. You're still dealing with 3 children. And right. I know they want to keep a secret, but I think that's tough.
Do we happen to know when the last time was that anybody outside of the family saw Summer?
I actually don't. And I think that is a really good question.
Because that would narrow the timeline down even further.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure the police probably know.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But they're not going to release that.
Yeah, yeah. So right now the police are still going with this timeline. They're not saying, oh, she wasn't seen since X day or whatever.
Right.
But anyway, this type of social media speculation is exactly what the TBI has warned against, saying that it muddies an already muddy case. For their part, Dawn not only claimed that Candace took a polygraph and passed, but that he did as well, and that they both took them within the first week of the investigation. However, authorities have neither confirmed nor denied these claims. And Dawn also has a few theories about what happened to his daughter on that day, which, of course he does, One theory is that Summer did leave the home of her own volition for whatever reason, and that someone snuck up on her and grabbed her on a wooded trail near the home. Another possibility is that someone was waiting for her in the basement and took her from the basement, which, that to me would have had to have been somebody who was known to the family. Some random stranger child kidnapper isn't going to be able to wander into this rural property, find the basement, know that a child's going to be down there.
Or even know that the basement door would be unlocked.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibility, but I think that if that is what happened, it has to have been somebody known to the family.
Yeah, I agree.
And, to your point about the basement door was usually kept unlocked. And because they have 3 young boys, it was commonly just left wide open.
Sounds right.
Yeah, exactly. It was also reported that a neighbor heard a, quote, funny sounding scream on the night that Summer went missing. And Dawn thought that this might have meant that her mouth had been covered and she gasped for air and tried to scream, Yeah,
a muffled scream.
Exactly. In the fall of 2021, as Summer remained missing, Dawn and Candace continued to fall apart. On October 30th, 2021, soon after they returned from filming the Dr. Phil show, Dawn was arrested for driving while under the influence. He was also charged with open container, violation of financial responsibility, which sounds like he was driving without insurance, expired registration, and improper lane usage. He was held on a $5,750 bond and was released around 7:30 a.m. on Sunday. A statement was released on the Summer Wells website stating Dawn's actions as, quote, stupid, with an excuse that he was driving around looking for cigarettes when he was arrested. And the parents read the website in case you couldn't guess that. Even before this, though, when they were taping their Dr. Phil episode, Don admitted that he had been struggling mentally since Summer's disappearance and that their home was not a safe place. In fact, 6 weeks after she was last seen, Child Protective Services removed the 3 boys from their home. And, again, like we saw this in Orrin and Orson West, where the kids were immediately removed from the home. We don't see this in every case. And in that case, though, in the West case, it was because the parents were immediately suspects. I don't think that's the case here. CPS had already been involved prior to Summer's disappearance.
I figured as much.
And so this was already the living situation was already a known fact. And, in the 6 weeks leading up to this, like, again, the home situation, the living situation had been made public. And so there was probably some external pressure as well.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Plus cops had been called, you know.
And I'm sure that given that they were spiraling, having just lost their daughter, I'm sure that the living situation didn't get better.
Exactly.
So I'm not making excuses, for their behavior. But
right.
Like, given Don's history that we know of, and he's going through this, like, I can see where it would get to that point or how it would get to that point.
Yeah. And Don told reporters at the time that he was actually glad that CPS had come, because like he did recognize that he was spiraling. But in addition to that, they were receiving death threats. Like all these people online thought that they had something to do with Summer's disappearance. So they were receiving threats. They found people sneaking around their property, like in the middle of the night, to the point where like somebody was, who he believes was from a YouTube channel, was on their property at 2 a.m. And, so he said he like shot his gun into the air. Basically, he was thinking that people were going to come and shoot up their house. Like he literally was afraid for their physical safety.
I hate people.
Yeah. Candace, though, was against the kids being taken away. And they said on Dr. Phil that this actually like caused a rift between them. Part of the reason that the boys were removed from the home was because of the living conditions. And I talked a little bit about the state of the home earlier. But it's important to reiterate that in addition to the mess, it just really didn't seem structurally safe or up to any building codes. Like I mentioned, there were wires everywhere. It seemed very unsafe. There was definitely electricity and like toilets and all of that. But according to the property tax records, like there wasn't anything hooked up. So I don't know, like they were doing something there. And also, remember how I said Summer's room was in the basement?
Yeah.
So apparently Don and Candace's room was down in the basement as well. And there was the door leading outside, but the only way you could get to the basement from the home wasn't from just like a set of stairs, like in most basements. It was a crawl space hidden beneath a table.
Interesting.
Yeah. And Candace is on video going under the table, like to go down into the basement to show people. Yeah, it's a very weird setup. But, they did say on Dr. Phil that in an effort to eventually get their boys back, they have started renovating the home.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. But renovations or not, it does appear as though the home still is not safe. On January 19th, 2022, at 12:30 a.m., police were sent to the Wells' home. A 911 call was made where dispatchers could hear arguing on an open line, but the call went dead and officers were sent to the scene. Upon arrival, Candace told them that Don had hit her and slammed her against the wall by her throat. She also thought that her thumb was broken, basically saying that like when he slammed her against the wall, her hand hit the washing machine and that she thought she had broken her thumb. She also reported that they had both been drinking and that the assault had actually happened 2 to 3 hours before the 911 call. But Don denied that the assault took place at all. According to him, they argued, but it did not get physical. So EMS arrived on scene and checked Candace out, but they found no bruises, scratches, or redness on Candace's neck. And according to the EMS report, her thumb didn't appear bruised or have any swelling. So it's kind of hard to say. I mean, if it did happen 2 to 3 hours prior, like maybe there wouldn't be any visible marks. But in any case, it doesn't appear that either of them was arrested that night. However, on February 7th, 2022, Don pled guilty to OWI. So that's DUI, basically driving under the influence, but, different states call it different things. It was his first OWI conviction. However, he was also already on probation, so this conviction violated his probation. So this led him being sentenced to 11 months and 29 days in jail. And as of this recording, he is still incarcerated. June 15th, 2022 marked the 1-year anniversary of Summer's disappearance. Sheriff Ronnie Lawson held a press conference in which he provided updates. The number of tips on the 1-year mark was 2,200, and the total reward fund is currently $73,705.90. So what happened to Summer Wells? Did she simply wander away and get lost? Did both of her parents do something to her? Did Candace do something to her without Dawn's knowledge? Or was it in fact a stranger abduction? You can get lost in a million different rabbit holes of theories on Reddit, YouTube, or, a million other places. But the fact is, a 5-year-old girl has been missing for over a year now, and she needs to be found. So please keep sharing her story. If you're local to the Rogersville, Tennessee area and think you have any slight bit of information, please share it. We haven't forgotten about Summer, and we want her to be found. Summer Wells has been missing from Rogersville, Tennessee since June 15th, 2021. Summer has blonde hair and blue eyes. Her hair was cut short in a buzz cut at the time of her disappearance. Summer was 3 feet tall and weighed about 40 pounds. She was last seen wearing a pink shirt, gray pants or shorts, and possibly no shoes or socks. Summer was 5 years old at the time of her disappearance. She would be 6 today. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Summer Wells, please contact the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office at 423-272-7121. You can see all the sources for this episode along with photos and videos at our website, andthentheywegone.com.
And be sure to follow us on social, and Then They Were Gone Pod on Facebook and at ATTWG Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe and consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It will help new listeners find us. And the more people that listen, the more chances we have of bringing someone home.
And we'll see you here next week for a brand new episode.
See you next week.
And Then They Were Gone is hosted by Kona Gallagher and Ethan Flick. All writing and editing is done by Kona Gallagher. Research for this episode was done by Kat Morris. Theme music is The Stork by Ketsa. Additional music is provided by Kai Engel. And Then They Were Gone is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!